I've thought a bit of the shining city upon a hill. The phrase comes from John Winthrop, who wrote it to describe the America he imagined. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. Windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds, living in harmony and peace.
There had been 2 world wars in my lifetime. We didn't start them, and indeed did everything we could to avoid being drawn into them. But we were ill prepared for both. Had we been better prepared, peace might have been preserved.
To maintain that peace requires strength. America has never gotten in a war because we were too strong. We can get into a war by letting events get out of hand as they have in the last 3.5 years, under the foreign policies of this administration of Mr. Carter's, until we're faced each time with a crisis.
There must be no wavering by us, nor any doubts by others, that America will meet her responsibilities to remain free, secure, and at peace. Yet history has shown that peace does not come, nor will our freedom be preserved, by goodwill alone. There are those in the world who scorn our vision of human dignity and freedom.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war. But there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second. Surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
I want to speak about freedom. And let me remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no bite. What, may I ask, was more extreme than our Revolutionary War? Our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for that most honorable and noble cause, freedom.
We turn tonight to the tension rising around the world as Russian President Vladimir Putin casts his shadow across the boundary of Europe and Russia. Tonight, his troops are holding firm in a corner of Ukraine known as Crimea. So will he push any further, and has the U.S. and its allies decided to push back?
Major news. After days on a razor's edge, Ukraine is now a nation at war. Just hours ago, Russian forces began their attack. President Vladimir Putin warning other countries that any attempt to interfere with the Russian action will lead to, quote, consequences they have never seen.
It is often said that the Cold War is over and that the West has won it. That's only half true, because what has happened is that the communists have been defeated, but the ideas of freedom now are on trial. If they don't work, there will be a reversion to not communism, which has failed, but what I call a new despotism, which would pose a mortal danger to the rest of the world.
You have to recognize that there are evil forces in the world that are not for peace, that there are aggressive forces, and that unless you stop that aggression, that you are not going to have a real peace. Their goal is very different from ours. To simplify it, our goal is peace as an end in itself, and their goal is victory. And whether it's peace or war, it's a means to the end of victory, the Soviet or Russian or communist domination of the world. And under Marxist-Leninist teachings, you use any means to achieve that great goal.
Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
If we fail to help Ukraine, Putin will invade a NATO nation. He may delay his next invasion until he rebuilds his decimated military. But we must be clear-eyed. Ukraine is not the end. It is a step.
He wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere of influence. I'm sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer, and the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism. He said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border, and frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out.
And we will never stop searching for a genuine peace. But we can assure none of these things America stands for through the so-called nuclear freeze solutions proposed by some. The truth is that a freeze now would be a very dangerous fraud, for that is merely the illusion of peace. You often hear that the United States and the Soviet Union are in an arms race. Well, the truth is that while the Soviet Union has raced, we have not. As you can see from this blue U.S. line, in constant dollars, our defense spending in the 1960s went up because of Vietnam, and then it went downward through much of the 1970s. Now follow the red line, which is Soviet spending. It's gone up and up and up. In spite of a stagnating Soviet economy, Soviet leaders invest 12 to 14% of their country's gross national product in military spending, 2 to 3 times the level we invest. I might add that the defense share of our United States federal budget has gone way down too. Watch the blue line again. In 1962, when John Kennedy was president, 46%, almost half of the federal budget, went to our national defense. In recent years, about 1/4 of our budget has gone to defense. The combination of the Soviets spending more and the United States spending proportionately less changed the military balance and weakened our deterrent. Today, in virtually every measure of military power, the Soviet Union enjoys a decided advantage. The Soviet military buildup must not be ignored. We've recognized the problem, and together with our allies, we've begun to correct the imbalance. Look at this chart of projected real defense spending for the next several years. Here's the Soviet line. Let us assume the Soviets' rate of spending remains at the level they've followed since the 1960s. The blue line is the United States. If my defense proposals are passed, it will still take 5 years before we come close to the Soviet level. Yet the modernization of our strategic and conventional forces will assure that deterrence works and peace prevails.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
Under the Reagan doctrine, one by one, it was the communist dominoes that began to fall. Then the mighty Red Army was driven out of Afghanistan with American weapons. And then in Nicaragua, that squalid Marxist regime was forced to hold free elections by Ronald Reagan's Contra Army, and the communists were thrown out of power. Fellow Americans, we ought to remember, it was under our party that the Berlin Wall came down and Europe was reunited. It was under our party that the Soviet Empire collapsed and the captive nations broke free.
32 years ago, when I was in Moscow, the premier of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, jabbed his finger into my chest and said, "Your grandchildren will live under communism." And I responded, "Your grandchildren will live in freedom. At that time, I was sure he was wrong, but I was not sure I was right. Thanks in great part to the strong, idealistic leadership of President Ronald Reagan, Khrushchev's grandchildren now live in freedom.
We summoned the national will to knock down protectionist walls abroad instead of erecting them at home. Common sense also told us that to preserve the peace, we'd have to become strong again after years of weakness and confusion. So we rebuilt our defenses. And this new year, we toasted the new peacefulness around the globe.
As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever.
Americans traditionally love to fight. All real Americans love the sting of battle.
There weren't any protesters in those days. Everybody wanted to fight for his country. The country was together, good versus evil. And there were some conscientious objectors who had a real religious problem maybe with this. But most everybody else couldn't wait to go to war, couldn't wait to fight for their country, couldn't wait to help defeat the emperor and the Hitler and the Fuhrer.
My pledge, America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone.
We see around us today the marks of our terrible dilemma. Predictions of doomsday, anti-nuclear demonstrations, an arms race in which the West must, for its own protection, be an unwilling participant. At the same time, we see totalitarian forces in the world who seek subversion and conflict around the globe to further their barbarous assault on the human spirit.